routes in there until the uncertainty of the cap is removed. We as a short-haul airline can continue to grow because we can, if the cap is reimposed, we can flip those aircraft out of Dublin reasonably quickly. And it's time for this do-nothing government to act. As I said, we have a do-nothing government, Micheál, a do-nothing Taoiseach, whose world tour continues while it fails to get anything done at home. We don't object to our Taoiseach parading the world, eating the Ferrero Rochers, but we would prefer if he actually stayed at home and implemented his government programme and let some of his ministers do the overseas travel. And this is a brief snapshot of the last 4 months in our glorious leader's life. So in September he was handing over rugby balls in Canada. In November he was at the COP conference in Brazil. We have an environmental minister who could have done that. In November he was at the G20 in South Africa. The finance minister could have gone there. In November he remarkably stopped off for a jobs summit in Angola, where not one job has been created in Ireland as a result of his visit to Angola. And very defensive. Oh, I'm here representing the country. Nobody objects to me. Yes, sorry, we do. We don't mind you on your overseas travel as long as you're implementing your government programme at home. But the government programme at home has not been implemented. 13 months later, we still have the cap, and with a 20-seat majority, he still hasn't abolished it. And it continues. In January, he was off in China for 4 days with the Ferrero Rochers, and this week, where is he? He's dossing in Davos. Tonight, they're hosting a dinner for 80 people, top executives, to focus on jobs. The most important thing Micheál Martin could do for jobs would be to abolish a cap at Dublin Airport and let Ryanair and the other airlines get on with the job of growing traffic, growing tourism, and growing jobs in Ireland. But of course, that wouldn't involve him getting his photograph taken or nibbling on the Ferrero Rochers. We have a very exciting 7-year growth plan for Ireland, but it's only implementable if this government takes some action or uses its 20-seat majority. We believe we can grow traffic from 40 aircraft over in 2025 and 23 million passengers to 60 aircraft and 35 million passengers over the next 7 years. That would see dramatic growth at Dublin. Cork would grow from 4 to 7 aircraft, Shannon from 3 to 7 aircraft. We would open a new base in Knock, which is currently not a base, a 2-aircraft base in Knock. All we require is, one, scrap the cap and allow Dublin to handle the 60 million passengers that it can handle with 2 runways. Freeze the Dublin Airport, already high Dublin Airport fees at its existing $16.50 per departing passenger. That would still allow them to build the additional terminal facilities we need, but they would have to stop. Their current proposal is to waste $9 billion building stupid things that airlines don't need at Dublin Airport. And much more importantly, at EU, focusing on the Draghi report, we need to bring ETS, which is the environmental taxation system in Europe, into line, or a level playing field. We only tax European citizens travelling on intra-EU flights. We exempt Americans, Chinese, the Gulf carriers, all coming to Europe, coming to and from Europe. It is indefensible that we only tax our own citizens and exempt everybody else. The only way to fix that distortion is to bring ETS, environmental taxation, into line with CORSIA, which would result in lower fares for all EU citizens. And so in summary, as you know, we are Europe's #1 airline. We have grown in Dublin. We're still growing in 2026, 125 routes and 18.7 million passengers in Dublin. The DAH are proposing to put charges up 10%, despite record traffic and record profits. Micheál Martin has, 13 months later, still failed to scrap the Dublin Airport cap, which he promised to do as soon as possible. We believe it's because he's too busy on his worldwide tour. He spends more time abroad than Elton John does. We want and can deliver 50% traffic growth by 2032. And it is imperative that this government acts quickly before Aer Lingus flights get blocked in New York, or God forbid Micheál Martin's March visit to the White House gets scrapped. We have in recent days, as you'll see, have run into some controversy with the owner of X, Elon Musk. I don't quite know why he took such umbrage over it. I had a discussion about, we have been in discussion with Starlink, his satellite system, for about over 12 months now. It is a very good system. We like the Starlink system. It is a terrific system. It works very well. The problem is, if you put it on board aircraft, there is a cost of that of about 250 million a year, including the cost of installation and then the fuel drag. You have to put not 1 but 2 aerials on top of the aircraft fuselage. That will have a between 1 to 2% fuel drag. We spend about 5.5 billion a year on fuel, and therefore it would increase our fuel bill by about 100 to 200 million. The Starlink people believe that 90% of our passengers would happily pay for Wi-Fi access. Our experience sadly tells us we think less than 10% of our passengers pay for this access, and therefore we can't afford to shoulder costs of between 150 or 250 million a year. If Starlink wants to fit the flights, fit our aircraft and pay for the fuel drag, we'd happily put them on board. But the only way we see Starlink working on board our aircraft on short-haul flights is if you give it away for free. And like most things in life, if you give it away for free, passengers will use it. If you want passengers to pay something modest like €1, €2, or $3 on our average 1 hour, 15-minute flights, we think less than 10%. I think, and that's even optimistic, probably less than 5% of passengers will take this up. I thought that was a reasonably measured response to why we're not using Starlink. Elon Musk apparently took great umbrage and resorted to insulting me on X the weekend, calling me an idiot. I think yesterday he also rounded on me and called me I think a retarded twat. All I would say to Elon Musk is he would have to join the back of a very, 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 very long queue of people who already think I'm a retarded twat, including my 4 teenage children. But we do want to thank him. We've had, I think, over 3 or 4 million hits on this seat sale our IT team launched yesterday, which is the big idiot seat sale. There's 100,000 seats available for sale at just $16.99, which just goes to show that Europe leads the world in low airfares. There's no airfares like this in North America. And we're later on this morning going around to the X offices in Cumberland House to present or to give Elon Musk a free ticket. He doesn't even have to pay the $16.99, a free Ryanair ticket, to thank him for the wonderful boost in publicity, which has seen our bookings rise significantly. They're up about 2 or 3% in the last 5 days, which given our volumes is a very significant boost. So thank you to Mr. Musk. I take no insult at all as being called an idiot or a twat. As anybody with teenage children would know, you're frequently called an idiot and a twat at home. I don't need to go outside to be insulted. But he's wrong on the fuel drag. We noticed he was holding a poll about should he launch a bid for Ryanair. We're a publicly owned company. He's free to do so at any time, but non-European citizens cannot own a majority of European airlines. But if he wants to invest in Ryanair, we would think it's a very good investment, certainly a significantly better investment than the financial returns he's earning on X. And we want to thank him sincerely for the additional publicity. Eddie, anything else you want to add in terms of the growth strategy for Ireland?
No, I mean, we are...
Or your reflections on... have you also called me an idiot and a twat?
From time
on a regular basis.
But no, you're quite right. I mean, on the whole connectivity, there are lots of companies doing this, and you got the 3 parties, you got the customers, you got the providers, you got the airline. I think it would be actually much less than 5% of people would actually pay for it. I'd say Wi-Fi would be a good thing to have on board, but it would make our fuel more expensive because there is some drag on that. And when we come up with a solution, then we'll have Wi-Fi on board, but we're not paying for it.
Sure. Okay, any questions?
The issue of
John.
Wi-Fi is something that's come up for many, many years for airlines, and as you mentioned, that kind of fuel drag. Why have you been talking to Starlink for 12 months if you know that obviously you don't really want it, that it's going to incur that kind of cost in terms of the fuel and the drag, etc.? Would you even think of trialling it on some of the aircraft to see what happens and see what the take-up is like?
I mean, look, there would clearly be a demand for Wi-Fi on board our aircraft if it was free. You know, other airlines, mainly long-haul carriers like Aer Lingus, like Lufthansa and others, are talking about installing Wi-Fi on board as a facility and giving it out for free. But their average fares, particularly on long-haul, are over €1,000. Our average fares are €45. And we cannot afford that kind of, to pay that 150, 250 million cost to install Wi-Fi unless it can be paid for. We have had discussions with Starlink and other providers, Amazon,
Vodafone,
and others. A lot of it is focused on, you know, how can we, is there a way we can jointly put this on board? We'll trial it for you. We give you a platform with 200 and 300 million passengers across Europe, but you pay for it. You sponsor it, or can we get joint sponsorship? Like, there's always ways of which you're looking at creative solutions that might overcome what is our fundamental issue with putting Wi-Fi on board, and that's cost. We don't believe passengers will pay for it, but it would certainly be a welcome addition if we can in some way finance it and put it on board our aircraft for free.
Mike.
Yeah, and we've had many years of experience. You get on board our aircraft. Lots of people are there on 1-hour flights, but they're on their laptop. They have Netflix and all this kind of stuff. We don't believe there is significant demand on the basis that people would pay for it on 1-hour flights. Sorry,
Michael, Stephen Murphy, Sky News.
Stephen, you're
Elon
welcome.
Musk on X has now called you an insufferable chimp. Is that kind of rhetoric really insulting to the chimpanzee community? And should anyone take this spat seriously at all? I mean, the share price hasn't moved much. EU regulations prevent him from trying to buy Ryanair in any case. Is this not just a case of two highly successful, publicity-hungry businessmen trading immature barbs at each other to get tons of free publicity?
I think that's a very unfair characterization. I do think it's unfair on chimps, but it is very good for our bookings. And if we can prolong these we love these PR spats that drive bookings on Ryanair. I'm sure it does wonders for Elon Musk and his X or whatever subscribers he has on X as well to be fighting with somebody. But if it's as long as it doesn't involve safety, and we've never compromised on safety, any of these spats are great for bookings and great for awareness all over Europe.
But he's putting humanity on Mars, and you're saying he doesn't know anything about aerodynamics.
Well, I mean, that's pretty self-evident. His claim is that there is no aerodynamic drag by putting aerials on top of, which comes as a great surprise to both Boeing and Airbus, who have spent literally 100 years refining the aerodynamics of aircraft. I mean, we're fitting little winglets on the side of our, scimitar winglets on the side of the wings of our aircraft at a cost of, a couple of $100,000. But they save about 2 or 3%. They improve. So tiny little amounts of improvements in fuel drag result in very significant fuel savings. But tiny impediments like aerials hanging off aircraft would add to costs. But we're very happy to continue the controversy. I welcome the accusation that I'm a chimp. I think it's somewhat unfair on the chimp community, but chimp, as long as it increases Ryanair bookings through January, February and March, it's all good fun and entertainment. Yes, sir.
You described X as a cesspit.
Yes.
In style of Elon Musk, do you think X would be less of a cesspit if it was led by somebody called Ryan? And who would your preference of Ryan's be?
Look, I mean, I have very little time. I do believe social media, X in particular, is a cesspit. I'm not a member, never have subscribed, don't participate in it. But I find my personal objection to social media is anonymity. I mean, we have numerous examples of, people being, Simon Harris's family being threatened anonymously on these things. And you go through enormous. I fail to understand why, if you want to put something up on social media, put it up under your own name. And I hear this nonsense defense. Oh, in Iran, well, not in America, not in Europe. Your freedom of speech is protected in the US and in Europe. And I fundamentally disagree. I believe that governments should now legislate, both in Europe and in the US, to remove anonymity. Post away to your heart's content, but put it out under your own name. And if you want to slag off politicians, or if you want to, make false claims about safety. I mean, we had this originally earlier on back in the website days. People were posting stuff on anonymous websites claiming that Ryanair was unsafe, and he was a pilot at 23. We went through the Californian courts and found out eventually it was some 17-year-old in Navan sitting in his PJs, making up this stuff. So I would just remove anonymity, and people have freedom of speech, but you have to be responsible for what you say. And I fail to understand why you have things like X, and it's not the only social media which protects anonymity, which gives all these keyboard warriors the right. And I think the most recent controversy with Grok, undressing children or undressing women, is frankly offensive. I don't understand why governments don't make it illegal. That's nothing to do with freedom of speech. Women and children, and the occasional man, I presume as well, should be protected from not having your images nudified. There's enough porn out there for those who want to watch porn. But, I think it is a social media and, things that enable nudification or paedophilia or, child abuse, and there's lots of cases of that, should be outlawed. But the easiest way to do it is remove anonymity. Yes?
Michael, I suppose previously I sat in another room like this with you before, and you referred to Catherine Martin and Eamon Ryan about 2 years ago as dunces. You led a big campaign with them having dunce caps on. Do you think people
I don't think so. I mean, firstly, we were entirely vindicated. Both of them lost their seats in the subsequent election. I think we are now living with the consequences of 5 years of green failure. Road transport, Dublin is the most congested city in Europe. For 5 years with an aviation policy in Ireland that allegedly promotes growth in traffic, tourism and jobs. We had a cap at Dublin Airport. But I think the Irish electorates have had their say and clearly agree with me. I'm not always right, but if somebody wants to have a pop at me, I'm all up for it. Shoot away. As I said, I have 4 teenage children, so there is nothing that Elon Musk can say to me that my teenage kids haven't already said to me. But if it results in a bit more PR for Ryanair or helps us to promote a world-leading seat sale during the dark months, weeks 2, 3 and 4 of January, it's great. I'm more than welcome it. But I'm well able to take my own medicine, so,
Well, can I just ask, would you welcome somebody like Elon Musk as a shareholder in the company, and are you calling today on Starlink and Elon Musk to sponsor basically a trial run of the technology on board? And if it was successful, would you consider using it, or is it going to be hard to gauge if people are using it for free?
No, firstly, we welcome all shareholders on our share register. Now, obviously, we have an obligation to have a majority to remain EU-owned and controlled. So it would not be possible for Elon Musk, even if he wanted to acquire Ryanair. But I would certainly encourage him to invest in Ryanair. I think it's one of the best airline investments. In fact, I think it's one of the best investments out there. What's the second part of the question, Fergus? Sorry?
Just in relation to, are you asking for a trial run basically today?
No. Look, we have had discussions with all of the Wi-Fi providers, and the bigger ones, Amazon, Starlink, and Vodafone. They're all excellent systems. I don't have any issue, and I would say publicly, I think Starlink is a terrific system. But the economics of putting it on board short-haul aircraft, where we on our customer base don't believe they will pay for it, are prohibitive. I mean, we tried this. There was a good example about 10 years ago when we put these in-flight entertainment systems on board. These kind of, we had the glorified PCs and we were renting them out. And I thought this would be the greatest thing since sliced bread. We wouldn't be able to keep them stocked. And at the same time, we put on lottery tickets, which I thought was the greatest stupidity known to humankind. Nobody would ever buy that rubbish. 10 years. I think the onboard in-flight entertainment systems lasted about 2 months, and the lottery tickets are still going strong 10 years later. So, we would always be happy to trial these things, but, when you start, and it's not something that, it's not like, we can roll these out on board and put them on the trolleys on board the aircraft. For us to refit these aircraft, we take the aircraft out of service to refit aerials on them. This is a huge... You take the aircraft out of service, it's a huge capital expenditure to fit this technology onto the aircraft, and then you have a fuel drag going forward. And if the trial doesn't work, you then take the aircraft out of service. You have to deal. This is not simple. If you start playing around or drilling holes in aircraft fuselages, it is very expensive. It is technically difficult, and if it results in a fuel drag, it is something we would never go near. But we are very happy, and we are continuing to have discussions with Starlink, with Amazon, with Vodafone about the possibility of doing it, but only in a way where it will lower our costs. And those discussions will continue. So we would not rule it out at any stage. Yes, sir.
Full year results next week. Is there anything we can expect to see now? Or would post-tax profits of around 5 billion, is that a realistic target?
No, as you know, because we have third quarter results on Monday, we're in a closed period, can't say anything about results or guidance or anything else. It'll all be dealt with on Monday, when hopefully our seat sale with Elon Musk will have successfully concluded and this country will have blown over. Yes, sir.
You said that X is a cesspit. Are you comfortable with Ryanair maintaining an account and posting there, given what you said it's a trial?
No, sorry, no, I said all social media, in my view, is a cesspit. I wouldn't confine it just to X. There's worse than X out there. Am I happy for Ryanair to be on these? Yes, I am. We have to be out there, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or Snap. Oh, God help us, we're on TikTok. We have one of the biggest corporate accounts on TikTok, which I think, personally, is the greatest amount of rubbish I've ever seen. I don't see much of it. Talking airplanes. Jesus. Is this what the world is coming to? But if that's where you can reach the younger generation, that's fine. But on all of these sites, we post on Ryanair, we post under our own name. If we say something wrong, we're responsible for it. What I think should be stopped and what governments should tackle, both at European and US level, is remove the anonymity. So I have no difficulty with social media as long as everybody's posting on their own names. But I think it's fundamentally wrong that people are out there with all the various scandals, whether it's nudification or child pornography or suicide ideation, whatever that is. Do it under your own name and fine. Then at least you're maintaining and protecting freedom of speech. But stop this thing where keyboard warriors can use anonymity to death threats at politicians. Like, nobody deserves that kind of stuff. Female celebrities who are nudified on these things, they don't deserve that. And we need to have a bit more common sense this day when governments seem to be frozen. Ooh. Now, I'm not surprised our government is frozen because Micheál Martin is useless anyway. You know, with a 20-seat majority, 15 months later, he still hasn't scrapped a stupid cap that he's completely ignored already. But, you know, we need to be much tougher. And he's out there in Davos today passing around the Ferrero Rochers with representatives from X and all the other American social media companies. Well, he needs to carry a big stick and do something. Europe should be doing something about removing anonymity from social media and trying to tidy that crap up.
Michael,
Yes.
have you had any direct contact with Elon Musk since the spat, and what do you think his motivation is?
I have no direct contact with Elon Musk. I am not, as you will know, on X. I don't think I have any way of reaching him. I've no reason to be in contact with Elon Musk. What's his motivation? I presume like he rants and raves on X. I think it's good for him promoting X and his own views on X. And we're very happy to respond in kind on the Ryanair X platform. And if he wants to call me an idiot, you know, he wouldn't be the first, and he certainly won't be the last to call me an idiot or a retarded twat. But if it helps to boost Ryanair sales, you can insult me all day, every day. And Eddie Wilson as well, who's, you know, readily insultable too, although somewhat younger and more attractive than me.
Do you despair for humanity, Michael?
No, I am optimistic for humanity, John. We are bringing low-fare air travel to many more millions of European citizens in the next 8 years. Instead of carrying 200 million passengers a year, we'll be carrying 300 million passengers a year, which is one of the great successes of the single market and European Union. You know, Europe spends far too much time pulling wool out of its own navel instead of, you know, crowing about its successes. And with the single market in Europe and the deregulation of airline has been one of the stellar success stories of the European Union. In America today, you know, the cheapest airfares are north of $100. We originally started by copying the formula of Southwest Airlines, who had $10 airfares. Last year, their average airfare was about $130. Last year, Ryanair's average airfare was €45. We wiped the floor with American, in terms of competitiveness, with American air travel. Now, America has a lead in AI, America has a lead in IT, but when it comes to air travel, Europe wipes the floor. That doesn't mean that Ursula von der Leyen, you know, shouldn't be doing something on reforming ATC, you know, a level playing field on environmental taxation. As the Draghi report highlighted, there is much to be done. But she's not much use either. So we will continue to campaign for further reform. But no, I look forward with nothing but enthusiasm for humanity and the human race if we could just move the kids a little bit more off social media. But they will adapt to that. I remember when I was young here in the late 60s, early 70s, and we used to watch, I think, about 3 hours of television in the evening. RT would come on at about 6 o'clock, one station, black and white. And we'd watch Wanderley Wagon and a few other programs, and my grandparents thought, your heads will be fried, oh, you're watching too much television, you know. Now you're 24-hour television, and the kids are on wall-to-wall social media.
Do you think we should follow Australia's route and try and ban it for
I think anybody trying to ban social media to under 16s is wasting your time. You may as well be, I can't remember what it was, trying to stop the tide coming in. You know, 16-year-old kids, 14-year-old kids will wind their way around a ban faster than Ryanair seats are selling out today on today's seat sale. You know, the politicians in their 40s and 50s imposing bans on under 16-year-olds will be, in relation to phone access or social media, will be hopelessly ineffective. I do believe, however, that one of the ways, rather than trying to ban something, if you really want to ban something, ban anonymity on social media. Force people, and all of the internet companies know who's posting, but they should be posting under whatever it is their own name or their own account names, and it would clean up a lot of the crap on social media. Yes, Connor. Sorry, I didn't come back to you. Connor.
Is the drag on Starlink worse than the others, or better, or do you have any sense of that? And then, just what's your general thought on Wi-Fi and low-cost carriers? Has anybody cracked it? Do you think somebody will eventually, or probably not?
Look, technology will ultimately crack this thing. I'm sure we'll get to a 6G and an 8G and a 10G eventually, and I have no doubt that instead of putting aerials on the external of the fuselage, we'll be able to fit an aerial in the internal of the front or the rear galley or something, or the baggage hold. Like, technology will ultimately get there. We live in a hyper-connected world, and people will ultimately have free access to Wi-Fi on board short-haul aircraft. So I've no doubt the technology will get there, which is why we continue to be in dialogue with Amazon, with Starlink, with Vodafone on this. It will come. But we cannot see a way at the moment where the model, anybody will pay for, even if you look at the long-haul airlines, the Lufthansas and the Aer Lingus, big song and dance, but it's free Wi-Fi access now. I've travelled on Aer Lingus across the Atlantic, and the Wi-Fi access isn't great at the moment anyway. So even if it was free, I'm not sure it would be dramatically improved. But it's coming, and the technology will keep improving.
So you're waiting until it doesn't need an external area?
We're waiting until, one, we can get it sponsored or guaranteed that it doesn't, or that it becomes some sort of, that it doesn't have a cost penalty for us. And two, we and together with our partners can give it away for free, and then I think people will genuinely use it. Use lots of places where you go to hotels, or you're going through places where you can have free Wi-Fi access, but they want your email address. Maybe you do something like that, and that gets more people on board with their internet address. And there's lots of ways, but I think ultimately the technology and the commercial agreements will result in free Wi-Fi on board short-haul aircraft as well. Simon, you're very welcome to Dublin.
Good morning.
We hope you flew Ryanair.
I did fly Ryanair.
Excellent.
That's why I arrived at 10:15.
No, that was the... Cancel his return flight, will you?
Do you think, inadvertently, that Ryanair might be fueling smartphone addiction, because it's now 3 months since you said you've got to check in with your smartphone? And how's that going?
No, already before we started that in November, we had about 80% of passengers checking on smartphones. That number is now up to about 98, 99%. Yeah. And I hasten to add the other 1.5% are getting their paper. We're printing the paper boarding pass for them free of charge at the airports, as long as they've checked in online. But no, are we fueling smartphone addictions? I don't think so. Ours are transactional. If people are traveling with us, it's all done online, and we think that is the way of the future. But thank you for flying all the way to Dublin to ask that super, really intelligent question.
With this big idiot saving and the money that's going to come from it, any plans to maybe purchase a Tesla?
To what?
Purchase a Tesla. For you to purchase a Tesla?
No, absolutely not. I live in Mullingar, 50 miles from Dublin, and my favourite mode of transport is a Landini tractor. They don't. We're not at the electrification stage yet. Eddie, I think, is the proud owner of a Tesla.
No, not a Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
No,
what is it?
Not an Audi.
Oh, an Audi. There's no support for Elon Musk and his social media website or his electric cars here.
When is your next meeting with X?
What?
A meeting with X at all?
I've never had a meeting. I don't think we've ever had a meeting with X. We have meetings with Starlink on fitting the aircraft with Wi-Fi. But we've no reason to meet with X. Someone said Ryanair does have an X account, but no. I think we are sending around to the X Dublin offices this morning a free ticket for Elon Musk as part of our Big Idiot seat sale, and I would hope that I've included myself and him in this Big Idiot seat sale. I suspect he's a bigger idiot than me, but nevertheless, he probably thinks I'm a bigger idiot than him.
Are you going to the X offices today?
No, I have an airline to run. We are hand delivering the free ticket around there. I'm sure there'll be something posted on our social media accounts later on today.
Michael,
Yes, sir.
what do you make of the handling of the Kenny Jacobs situation?
Of the who?
Kenny Jacobs.
I don't know the detail of it, and I'm not in a position to comment really. All I would say is, it seems clear that Kenny's error appears to be that he's upset some people in Fingal County Council and some bureaucrats in the Department of Transport. And I think every one of us on a daily basis should get up and say that the first thing we will do today is to upset people working for county councils and certainly useless bureaucrats in the Department of Transport. I imagine that if he is replaced, the job description for the next leader of Dublin Airport will be, please don't upset Fingal County Council, or they might write to the Department of Transport and complain about you. I mean, we have much bigger issues to frown. I don't think he's done a particularly good job at Dublin Airport. He championed this ludicrous tunnel, 220 million, a tunnel under the taxiway, out to nowhere. It's a tunnel to take people out to where the cargo aircraft are. Now, the parcels don't need tunnels. They can drive around the outside of the aircraft. But it is more of the kind of gold plating. They want to waste this kind of money so that the regulator will give them more further increases in fees. And we live on an island on the periphery of Europe. It is vital that Ireland continues to provide efficient facilities and low fare access on and off this island. Now that we finally got rid of the green lunatics, the idea that we're all going to be cycling to Brussels, or like some of the famous green MEPs getting trains to the UK and boats to the. We don't have time to. Green MEPs may have 3 days to waste getting to Brussels, but the rest of the world doesn't. I think the situation is not. I regret the situation he personally finds himself in. I think it's a bit of a mess, but it seems to be a mess that is caused by criticising those in Fingal County Council, who are presiding over this stupid and illegal cap. And I think the much greater danger for Ireland is that, if Aer Lingus flights could well be blocked from landing in New York, Micheál Martin might well be blocked from going to the White House in March, and then you'll see this legislation passed within 24 hours. But for 13 months, Micheál Martin, and it's in the programme for government, we will strap this cap, quote, as soon as possible. 13 months ago, with a 20-seat majority. And it's not like they've been busy passing other legislation last year. This government does very little, but it's led by somebody who spends far too much time being wheeled around abroad, meeting global leaders, instead of, which would be fine as long as you were having a cabinet meeting here at 8:30 on a Monday morning and getting stuff done. He wanders in at about 11 o'clock on a Tuesday and then disappears to Davos for a couple of days.
Michael, if Ireland qualify for the World Cup next year, will Ryanair consider putting on long-haul flights for France to the States and Mexico?
There are very few things on which I can be truly certain about, but one, we won't be putting on flights to the US, and two, I'm fairly sure Ireland won't qualify for the World Cup anyway. Which is why I urge everybody, keep booking your short-haul holidays to Europe in June and July, because don't worry, Ireland won't be in the World Cup.
Do you think there'll be a trade war between the US and the EU? And if so, how do you think that'll affect pricing coming into the summer period?
I mean, honestly, none of us know. But I think it is time for Europe to stand up to the US. I think, if Trump threatens Europe with tariffs, Europe should respond in like measure. And Trump will chicken out, tackle. He generally does. Europe is a big, wealthy economy with the second largest trading bloc in the world after the US economy, and Europe needs to get its act together. How do I think it would affect our business? Who knows? And I certainly don't know. But I don't think a trade war would last very long, given the amount of American businesses that are based here in Europe, given the amount that Europe imports from America and vice versa. But we have to have a more belligerent foreign policy towards certainly the Trump administration, and we would hope that eventually common sense will prevail. I mean, I think if you look at Trump, he is, at the end of the day, is interested in doing business. He certainly has midterm elections coming in November. He certainly wants the US economy to be doing well, and I don't think Trump, 8 months out from midterm elections, can afford to have a trade war with Europe. But it is absolutely imperative. I mean, we have all grown up in the 80 years post the Second World War, where thanks to NATO and certainly thanks to free trade, the world is a much wealthier place. And we should continue that. as a big importer of American aircraft. We are the largest investor in American aircraft outside of North America. We own a fleet of 630 Boeing aircraft. We've ordered another 300. They make great aircraft. I am a huge supporter of America. It has done wonders for free trade. It has done wonders for the promotion of democracy. And these things will pass. But, you know, Europe does need to get its act together. And if Trump wants to have a row with Europe, well, let's have a row right back.
So you're confident Boeing would eat the tariffs?
Pardon me?
Are you confident that Boeing would eat any tariffs?
I'm not. But again, none of us know. But certainly during the last, I mean, generally speaking, aviation, aircraft and engines have been excluded from most previous tariff instruments. The Europeans are big importers of Boeing aircraft. The American airlines, particularly on the long-haul side, are big importers of Airbus aircraft. So, you know, if you look at the number of jobs in America, Boeing, GE, the engine side, huge numbers of American jobs depend on aviation exports. Aircraft and engine exports are one of the biggest manufacturing exports in the US, and similarly here in Europe into the US as well. So I would hope, from a selfish point of view, that if there is that there won't be a tariff trade war, but if there is a trade war, that aircraft and engines will be exempt. But we take delivery of our last 4 aircraft from Boeing in February, and then we don't have another aircraft delivery until spring of 2027, when hopefully we get the first of the great new MAX 10 aircraft.
Is there anything in that contract for the MAX 10s that allows you to alter the contract in any way if something like tariffs have been imposed?
We would never comment on the contents of those contracts. They're entirely confidential. Next question. Barry.
Michael, where do you see fares going this summer in particular?
At the moment, we believe fares are likely to rise 3 or 4%, you know, some small single digit, but that's our, you know, normal thing. They may level out or fall if fuel prices keep falling. Again, I think one of the things that I think Trump is focused on in advance of the midterms in November will be driving down oil prices and driving down interest rates in North America. Thus, you have the row with the Federal Reserve, and certainly every attempt there with the removal of the Venezuelan president to boost oil supply and maybe drive down gas prices. But, you know, that's me merely speculating. If oil prices fall or continue to fall, and there is generally an expectation that of a supply glut this year, then I think a lot of those oil price savings will be passed on in the form of lower fares. But it's hard to tell. The overriding kind of dynamic in Europe at the moment is constrained supply of aircraft, constrained seat supply. Even we this year can only grow, and we're taking 29 aircraft from Boeing this year. We're only going to grow our seat supply by about 3%. So it is very tight. You have most of Europe's Airbus are still going through the Pratt & Whitney engine repairs. So there's very little capacity out there, which is why, again, we urge the Irish government, you know, when drag Micheál Martin back from Davos today, kicking and screaming, and tell them to pass the legislation so that with that spare capacity, we can actually put some growth into, continue to grow here in Ireland, and continue to grow in Europe.
We've been talking about these capacity limits out there and the fact that they're pushing up fares for about half a decade. When do you see?
I know, about 2 years. Jesus, Barry, we've had COVID and a war in Ukraine.
I'm going buying the tickets.
Yeah. Book earlier. There's available at $16.99 as we speak today, but clearly you're not an idiot.
No.
You wouldn't qualify for this seat sale.
Okay. When do you see the capacity constraints easing?
I mean, there is all of the indicators at the moment is there will be no easing in capacity or a kind of upturn in capacity above kind of GDP growth before 2030. Both Boeing and Airbus are hugely backlogged on deliveries. And Boeing still has to get the MAX 7 and the MAX 10 certified. They're pretty confident they'll get it certified later this year. And even if they do start those deliveries, with the exception of Ryanair, no other European airline has any significant aircraft orders between now and 2030. Wizz had, but they've delayed and deferred most of them, probably because they can't afford to buy them or there's nowhere to fly them. But there's very little capacity, and there's a backlog of orders. coming from the Middle East. Riyadh Air wants to buy 100, 200 short-haul aircraft, but can't get any before 2030. The Turks want to buy another 500 aircraft. The Indians want more aircraft. So all of the demand, and the Chinese haven't ordered a Boeing aircraft for about 7 years. So there's a huge backlog of demand. Now, there could be some geopolitical disruption over Greenland, Ukraine, Taiwan, God knows what's going on in the world, and the world feels a very uncertain place. So that might, historically when the airlines are doing well, usually something comes out of left field, whether it's 9/11 or a Gulf War, that sets back air travel. But based on everything we see this year, we think it's reasonable to assume we expect to grow our traffic from 207 million last year to about 215 million in the next 12 months. And we think there might be a modest 2, 3, 4% increase in airfares, but we haven't a clue yet.
I think it's important, Barry, like you see where that capacity is going. Like yesterday we were in Italy, they're growing by 9%.
And Albania.
Michael got to go down to Albania yesterday. They're growing by almost 60% this year with Ryanair aircraft, and 9% in Italy, 11% in Morocco, 3% in Spain, and we're going nowhere in Ireland because there's no decision on that cap, and when you have no capacity growth, you're going to have fares rising,
I mean, I was down in Tirana in September announcing we're opening a base, 3 aircraft base in Tirana in March. In September, and the problem in Tirana was they have one terminal building that serves only 8 aircraft. Said it's too small. I think Wizz have 8 aircraft based in Tirana, so you need to double the size of the terminal building. He said, don't worry, we'll do. We're going to start in September and we'll finish in March. I said, no, you won't. It'll take 2 years, or if you Micheál Martin, that it could take 3 or 4 years. They start in September. They've already finished the building. I was down there yesterday, again announcing a 4th based aircraft. The building is built. They're just doing the internal fit out, and that could be done in 5 months in Albania, which contrasts with Micheál Martin doing nothing, just to scrap a bloody cap in 13 months. Like, some governments get it and get on with it, and some governments, sadly led by Micheál Do-Nothing Martin, don't get it and do nothing. Simon.
Yes. Now, just going back to Elon Musk, you've given him a free Ryanair ticket.
Yes.
I'm sure he'll be very grateful. Are you going to give him any advice on which airline he should buy?
No, it would be inappropriate for us to give him any investment advice. I think he's running polls on X, though, where he's getting lots of advice from lots of idiots on X. As I said publicly, we welcome everybody investing. Anybody who wants to buy shares in Ryanair is free to do so. We're a publicly traded company listed on the European and the US stock exchanges. But a non-European, we would politely and respectfully point out that a non-European cannot acquire or control a European airline. Any else?
Michael,
John.
You've spoken to COMAC before, and given the geopolitical environment and whether that persists for however long that persists, does it get you to thinking at all strategically about, where you need to position yourself in terms of future aircraft orders and possibly reducing your reliance on Boeing if the environment we're in continues and we end up having, longer term tariffs or whatever? Would you align yourself more closely maybe with COMAC and see what they're doing? Would you be interested in placing an order with them?
I mean, look, we have previously talked to COMAC. We signed a design agreement with COMAC, I think, back around 2014, 2015. The problem and the challenge for COMAC is they're producing very few aircraft. Like Boeing is now Boeing are rumoured yesterday to be launching a production line for 737s up in Everett. They've only ever made them in Renton. And that would increase Boeing's monthly production from about 43 aircraft to about 65 aircraft. So COMAC last year, I think, built about 60 aircraft in the whole year. And the problem is the more COMAC grows, and COMAC is due with the Chinese have always said they're basically sub-assembling an A320. All of the avionics, all of the engines, all of the real complicated parts are all European. So it's GE engines or Senecma engines. It is Honeywell avionics. It's Collins avionics. So the faster or the more COMAC grows its production capacity, the more they draw from the already constrained supply chains for Airbus aircraft here in the US and in America, and in US and Europe. So COMAC is not going to come to anybody's rescue before certainly the early or mid-2030s. The aircraft they're making at the moment is only 180 seats, so it's too small for us. I have no doubt, we're placing aircraft orders here. We ordered 300 Boeing MAX 10 aircraft back during COVID. those deliveries are due to come to us from 2027 to 2034. So we are the best positioned airline in the world for controlled capacity growth and growth of low-fare air traffic for the next decade. Now, there is still an issue with Boeing still needs to get those aircraft certified and delivered, but they're pretty confident, and I think under the new management, certainly led by Stephanie Pope and Kelly Ortenberg, I think Boeing are doing very impressive things in turning the business around. But even if I didn't want to order Boeing, if I went to Airbus today and said, your aircraft are more expensive, but I want to order 100 which I would like to do for the Laudamotion fleet. We have 30 A320s in Laudamotion, but they're coming up to the end of their lease in 28 and 29. Airbus cannot deliver me a narrow-body aircraft or an A320 or 321 until about 2032 or 2033. So there's no aircraft available. So thinking strategically, we're in a very fortunate position to be able to have controlled growth out to 2034. We would certainly need to do another aircraft order in the early 2030s. But the chances of there not being some unforeseen downturn in aviation or some unforeseen downturn in the world between now and 2030, the early 2030s, are, I think, zero. Because there's always some catastrophe visited on the airline industry every 3, 4 or 5 years. The last one was COVID. We emerged out of COVID, and then Putin illegally invaded Ukraine, something that, I disagree fundamentally with Trump on. I think Trump is right on NATO needing to increase spending. Trump is right on rowing back against environmental taxation. Trump is right on an awful lot of his economic policies. But he is historically wrong on Ukraine and not criticizing Russia. And he is historically wrong on tariffs. Tariffs have never succeeded. They have never worked. And they will never succeed or work because they increase inflation and the cost of living for ordinary people. So thinking strategically, we're about as well placed as any airline can be, and I would certainly hope that we will be able to pick from maybe 3 suppliers in the early 2030s, Boeing, Airbus or Comac, but we have to wait and see what happens between 2026 and 2030 first. Anybody else?
Michael, is Trump right or wrong on Greenland?
Trump is wrong on Greenland. I mean, I think the US has persuasive and real kind of defense concerns on Greenland. But if you have, I think they already reached agreement with Denmark and with Greenland after the Second World War. I think they had 12 or 15 military bases or air bases in Greenland. If you want to reopen those bases, I think you'd get nothing but support from NATO and from Denmark. But you can't in this world just go in and say, I want Greenland, give it to me. I mean, what would you then say to the Chinese if the Chinese want to go and invade Taiwan? Or what do you say? I mean, well, I think he's already historically wrong on Putin just pushes invades Ukraine in what is clearly an illegal invasion. And I think he is, historically wrong on that as well. But look, people also need to stand back. History has shown us you have American administrations. This administration will last for another 3 years. There will be midterm elections in the States at the end of this year. I have no idea what the outcome of those midterm elections. But if he loses the House or loses the Senate, there will be a dramatic change in US politics. And there will be another presidential election in 3 years' time. So there will be another US president. And I think Trump gets lots of things right and he gets a number of things wrong. But that's democracy, and he was elected. And we, certainly in Europe, have to manage that relationship for the next 2 or 3 years. But where he's wrong, Europe should stand up as a strong trading bloc and tell him he's wrong. And stop trying to pander to him and invite him to dinner when, he wants to. I don't understand why he needs to own Greenland. It's certainly not for some defence or military reasons, because as a member of NATO, and Denmark is a member of NATO, I don't think Denmark or Greenland would have any issue if Trump wanted to reopen those bases in Greenland and invest in Greenland. But you don't need to own it for that.
There's been woeful underinvestment in Ireland's military. Do you think there should be significantly more spent on Ireland's military? Should Ireland consider rethinking its neutrality given what's going on in the world?
I think Ireland has no option but to, Irish neutrality is a joke. Much beloved of the left-wing lunatics in this country. We are a defenceless island on the periphery of Europe. We are not able to protect either our skies or the seas off our coast. And I think Europe will be running out of patience with Ireland on this. I believe Ireland should be a member of NATO. I think Dev was historically wrong in the 1950s, when we should have joined NATO in 1945 and the late 1940s. We would have developed deep-sea submarine ports off the west coast of Ireland. NATO would have built about 25 airports across Ireland, and we would have far better infrastructure than we've managed on our own. But Dev made the chronic mistake I wanted to be isolationist. Isolationism has never worked. It didn't work in Ireland in the 50s and 60s, didn't work in North Korea, and didn't work in China in the 70s, 80s and 90s either. We live in a world where free trade works. Free trade reduces costs for consumers and increases the wealth of nations, and has done so since Adam Smith wrote his treatise in the 1850s. And Ireland needs to wise up. We need to generate much more revenue, and we do need to significantly increase our defence spending. And I would personally think Ireland should be a member of NATO. I don't know how you can be a member of the European Union and not be a member of NATO, because either we're going to support Europe when it's under threat, as it is currently in Ukraine. If Putin decides he's going to invade the Baltic states or Finland or Poland, what are we going to do? Oh, sorry, we're neutral. We have to come to the aid and support of our European allies, as we should come to the aid and support of our American allies. I have no difficulty with the left-wing loonies whinging about us using Shannon Airport. Shannon Airport benefits significantly from US military, or the US military using Shannon as a stopover point for its troops, etc. And we should encourage that. And anything that annoys the loony left in this country should be actively encouraged. Any other questions?
Are your negotiations for your contract, are they moving along? Are they nearly finalised?
They are moving along at a glacial pace. We have far more pressing things to deal with. I'm already contracted up to 2028, and there's really not much pressure on me or the board to finalise any new arrangements. Like, we are dealing with things like the price of oil, Boeing delivery delays. Why can't we get Micheál Martin and with a 20-seat majority to scrap a cap at Dublin Airport when the Albanians can double the size of their terminal in 5 months? Really, my contract falls way down the list of issues that need to be addressed. Okay, folks, thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and Eddie and myself are available for one-on-ones and or anything else. Emer's going to line up one-on-ones. Thanks very much. Yes. We've done all the photographs. You missed it.
How are you doing? Right, good to see you again.
No, come on, quick.
Yes.